gentlemen, you know the rules. The last person to speak will pay for drinks for everyone tonight. It always works. Ladies and gentlemen, you're very welcome to the closing plenary. Allow me to say a resounding round of applause to yourselves. Of course, to the Clean Cooking Alliance, to the government of Ghana, but the real VIPs in this room are yourselves. Please, a round of applause for the 700 we had today and the almost 600 we have today. I mean, the 100 who've gone home won't get to see Rocky Dawuni tonight. So you know what? They're lost. Well, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Anita Erskine. We do have a packed closing plenary, so we'll go right to it. Of course, you may know by now that we had over 50 countries participating. Tonight, we are going to be having a few plenaries. Now, we're moving from conversations around finance, conversations around addressing clean cooking at a system-wide level, and finally, definitely last but not the least, what the youth have to do and the role they have to play in ensuring that we accelerate clean cooking, not just in Ghana, not just in Africa, but in all the very pertinent parts of the world. So, to start off our closing plenary, do allow me to bring onto the stage the CEO of Clean Cooking Alliance, Dimfna van der Laat.
I'm clearly too tall for this. Great to see so many people still here. Always really inspiring to have people come back for the closing plenary. It's going to be an important conversation, so I'm really looking forward to it. This has been a really important year for the clean cooking ecosystem, and particularly for the enterprises and project developers. We are seeing the momentum they have long been working towards. The amount of capital raised in the first part of 2022 is already more than double of that reported in 2020. Many enterprises have seen significant customer growth, highlighting the potential to deliver pioneering technologies at a transformational scale. The ecosystem continues to mature as more businesses and collaborators from other ecosystems develop partnerships and start new initiatives. To highlight just a few of the key investments and financial closes we celebrated recently. The first close and launch of the CCA-led Spark Plus Africa Fund, the first impact fund financing clean cooking solutions with a target fund size of $70 million. Express Gas, one of the largest LPG companies in Ghana, raised $6 million, $3 million in equity from impact investing group INP, and $3 million in debt from the Belgium investment company for developing countries to accelerate the growth of its business. Systema Bio announced the close of a Series B investment of $15 million that included a mix of equity, debt, and non-dilutive capital to support the continued growth and scale-up of the company's waste-to-energy technology and business model. Bbox secured a medium-term loan of $5.5 million from the Africa Go Green Fund to roll out its solar home systems and cooking solutions in sub-Saharan Africa. Burn Manufacturing is closing a total of $45 million this year that includes investments by Spark Plus Africa Funds, as well as $500,000 from NORAD for a factory working training in Ghana. Burn is also expanding to Nigeria and DRC. The company's Ghana manufacturing facility should be ready to ship products by next year. BioLite closed investments of $25 million in an investment round recently. A good portion of this investment is being used to expand clean cooking businesses. FMO, a Dutch public-private partnership, and Bix Capital, a Dutch provider of debt financing to small and medium enterprises, provided debt financing to Sequest Capital, a US-based investor in clean cooking projects. The government of Rwanda announced an agreement with Cocoa Networks to develop a nationwide renewable cooking fuel utility. Cocoa Rwanda, established in partnership with Dolberg Global Development Advisors, will deliver the technology, capital, and expertise to build and operate a nationwide network, investing $25 million in Rwanda. Delagwa is expanding the Tubeho Neta Clean Cooking Program, which has been operating in Rwanda since 2012, into new markets, signing MOUs with the governments of the Gambia, Sierra Leone, Burundi, and Liberia. Murembi Corporation, a global integrated traded and investment business based in Japan, invested in Circle Gas. The investment will be used to expand Circle Gas clean cooking services to more households in East Africa and beyond. I'm going to pause for a second here. That's 10 major deals. Like, three years ago, when we were all together in Kenya, I could not have even shared one of these. And so that tremendous progress is just really inspiring to see. As you've heard through the course of the forum, and especially today in our finance breakout room, how we design, deploy, and manage RBF funding, unit economic analysis, carbon finance, and subsidization will have an immediate impact on the viability of the clean cooking sector going forward, and lay the groundwork for how we build and grow on the levels of funding reached in 2022. As COP27 approaches, we also reflect on the messages from COP26 that we need climate solutions that reduce harmful emissions, but also address health, economic, and gender inequalities. As we all know, this transition will require significant increases in funding and resources to support technical and business model innovations that are responsive to the evolving needs of the customers. I hope in 2023 we will build on the momentum of 2022, but also adapt and adjust based on the key lessons learned. I'm excited to hear more about these developments during the next panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dimpna. Of course, we have that panel coming up, but allow me to also acknowledge the presence of the Honorable Deputy Minister of Energy, Mohammed Amin Adam, who will be sharing a few words at the end of this all. But moving to a very important conversation on finance, please allow me to hand the microphone over to Faisal Hussein, Senior Director, Innovative Finance, CCA, and of course, his panel. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Well, how about that? I mean, 10 million. I mean, we have raised more money, as Dimpna was saying, than we've ever raised before, so it's quite a remarkable feat. I was saying earlier that I don't know one cook stove from another, but I know finance. And what I'm actually quite excited about what's going on and what might be happening. So we've had a whole day session talking about what the prospects are for us to go from millions to billions for the clean cooking sector. It both signifies the need we think we need, or what's needed in the sector, but I think it also should signal what our priority for CCA, one of the priorities for CCA will be moving forward. So we want to work with you to try and really drive this agenda forward in the next few years. So I wanted to kind of call in now Marcel. Marcel is the head of, excuse me, somebody's trying to kind of, Marcel Rotz is the head of energy and climate team at RVO, which is the Netherlands Enterprise Agency. He patiently sat through the grueling hours of the finance conversation and will give us a synthesis of what he learned from that conversation, and we'll go into the panel discussion.
Thank you, Faisal. Good afternoon, everybody. For those that were already in the finance session towards the end, slight disappointment, I'm going to say more or less the same. But as Faisal said, I sat through the whole day, but I was happy to. I mean, the feeling, and that was my opening remark half an hour ago, the feeling I got was we're ready for takeoff. So much has happened in the last years, as Dimpna already explained. So much has happened in spite of COVID, or in some cases maybe even the innovation took part because of COVID. But there's finance in the sector. There are a number of companies that are really pushing forward. And at the same time, there's a lot of finance being mobilized. At the same time, the challenge is still enormous. So how is the question, and that was what we discussed in the finance sector, what are the And what are the components? What is helping us in future to bring this to further scale? How do we take the lessons from the companies that are really moving forward now? How can we bring them forward to the others? How bringing down unit costs is absolutely important. Attracting new revenue streams is absolutely important. So how can we take the lessons from those 10, 20, 30 companies that are really moving the sector now to the ones that still need to make that jump? And who are these companies? So on one hand, it's companies similar like the ones that we're working with now. On the other hand, and that's also because I'm also representing the Dutch government a little bit, is we're also looking into local SMEs, because these are market players of significance, and these are also players that can bring that sector forward. So how can we strengthen them? Because frankly, I think we need many more players in the market to be able to reach more than 2 billion people in the next 7 years. So there's a challenge. The good news is that increasingly a number of typical funds are coming into the sector and are being more structured. There is voluntary carbon finance, there is non-carbon, the impact finance, which is coming into the market, and we're learning from that. And one of the quotes that I took from the session was, well, a couple of years ago, we had a lot of projects, but we didn't have enough money. Now it's the other way around. We've got a lot of money, apparently, but there are not enough projects to absorb that. So we have to find a way to connect that. That was part of the panel, not my invention. We're also looking at how can we target these new revenue streams. When we talk about poverty orientation, when we talk about health, when we talk about gender, when we talk about reaching out to the ultra poor, and also in the panel sessions, there were quite some new findings and quite some new pilots that indeed explain to us that it is possible to bring, in a financial way, gender benefits into the discussion, bring health benefits into the discussion, target subsidies in a way that they really reach out to the poorest. So things are looking good. Bringing down unit costs. There was a discussion on blockchain technology, which is, I would say, not yet fully matured for our sector, but which is promising to bring down end unit costs, but also bring confidence for financiers and investors in the sector. So I'm looking forward to the development in the coming years as well. Is it all positive? Are we really moving forward, or do we still have some concerns? Yes, there are some, of course. With so much additional funding coming into the sector, what is the interaction between carbon funding, between the more, well, nowadays we can say, traditional funding of donors on RBF, on revenue streams like health and gender, and how can we bring them together in order not to distort the market, but at the same time also take care that the funds that are being generated are going to the places where it is most needed to make the sector grow. Also, I already mentioned, what is the role of local SMEs in the sector and how can we strengthen them? We also have, from RVO, we also have a number of programs and activities where we're really working with strengthening their business propositions, giving them access to finance. And on Monday there was a masterclass which was working with these local SMEs in order to strengthen them. And finally, and then I'll close. Finally, we would also have to have a look at the sector and see where's the traction in the market. It's in a relatively small number of countries. I'm really happy with Bern moving into countries that are not that easy in terms of market, but we really have to have a look at markets in Western Africa, in more poorer countries, to see that the traction is not only taking place in the countries where we are now, but also not forget that there are a lot of countries and a lot of people in these countries that need to have access to clean cooking sources really soon. And then I end with a quote, and that was the one that I wrote down really at the beginning of the day. That was, "Cookstoves have been an unbelievable investment for Acumen." So I hope that in 4 years, when the next forum is, that we have 10, maybe 20 investors saying exactly the same thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Marcel. So I think the three takeaways, if I can say, is how do we make the rest as good as the best? So we're going to increase the numbers of organizations in that space, and how do we really make sure that the supply of projects and companies catch up with the money that's available in the market. So we've got an amazing panel here, which reflects the ecosystem around clean cooking, both sort of traditional finance, but also new forms of finance coming along. And so I have the pleasure of introducing, I've got to get my glasses on, one of my problems. So I have the pleasure of introducing Kofi Nketsia. Have I pronounced it correctly? Thank you. I have a problem with this, so thank you. Welcome, Kofi. Kofi is the CEO of Express Gas Limited in Ghana. So welcome, Kofi. We have Nishdeep Sethi. She's the head of structured finance and products in the African Guarantee Fund. In very short notice, she's one of our sponsors as well. So thank you very much for coming and one part of the future of the clean cooking ecosystem. And I think everybody knows Peter George, who is the head of and co-managing director of Spark Plus, and came along very strongly about the money that we've raised. So Peter, welcome. And then we have Manojit Pal, who is the division manager for energy efficiency and clean cooking division at AFDB. And so welcome, Manojit. There is a slight difference. He's a Bengali, but he's pronounced. Maybe I just start with really where everything is, which is the company that produces and distributes, and it's around this that all the investment decisions are made. So before other financial institutions make investment decisions, you have to make investment decisions about where you invest your own money, right? So can you just take us through your journey in the LPG market in Ghana? What influenced the timing of your investments and how you went to other investors?
Thank you very much. So the aspiration for Express Gas has always been to try and figure out how we can present LPG as an option for end users. It's something that has been
Got it.
Yeah, that's it.
All right. So as I was saying, the aspiration of Express Gas has always been to try and figure out how we can make LPG accessible to end users across the country. Hitherto, LPG has always had this notion that it's expensive, it's for a certain class of people in our communities. And so what we set out to do 10 years ago was to try and figure out whether indeed that was the case, and if that was the case, how we make it really available and accessible and as much as possible affordable for those who can afford the product. And this really started off by doing an intense research into the existing ecosystem and infrastructure that Ghana has for distributing LPG across the country. And one of the things we spent immense time on was basically to figure out the consumer behavior, because for us to be viable and sustainable, we had to figure out what it takes for a consumer to use the product, what challenges the consumer has to use the product, and also if the product is available, what are really the price points that the consumer needs to really engage or use the product. So that's basically what our vision was. And I would say, having done intense R&D for, I would say, 7 years, we had the data. And that data was basically what lured or what the investors were interested in, because we had enough information to clearly define who our customer was and then how to reach the customer with a complete product. Right. Now, it's very important to emphasize that we were not just selling gas, but we're selling a complete service, which is basically the gas, the equipment, and all that takes for the consumer to have.
In terms of research and so on, did you have a lot of, this was money out of your pocket, or somebody gave you some grants? How did that work?
Okay, so we started off really trying to connect the dots. We had an existing infrastructure in place, that's in Ghana. And when Express Gas came in, what it sought to do was do what we call to improve the logistics of a country in terms of distribution of LPG. So basically, we dealt with, we're like an intermediary. We went to the end users that had money, and then went to suppliers that give us credit, and then used their money to turn around and actively grew. So we use basically internally generated money to really do these things, yes.
So that's a great piece of news, because traditional thinking is that some of the research work donors have to provide, and in many cases you might still do, because it's companies, unlike yours, others may not have the capacity to do, but you use your own balance sheet to try and do that. That's great. I just want to kind of, before we move to the next, just in very 1 minute, what's your market outlook? What's exciting you about the future?
What's exciting me is that LPG is an aspirational product. Ghana is fast developing, and there is immense opportunity for the deployment and adoption of LPG in Ghana.
Perfect. Wonderful. I want to turn to Peter. Peter, you, Spark Plus was incubated with the CCA. It's been spun off. You've had a remarkable track record of raising money for the fund, which is unbelievable. And so you made a decision to move in this space. Now, we all hear that there's not enough returns in the sector and there's not enough investment. So can you just explain, what are you seeing in the sector that others aren't seeing and they should see?
Thanks, Faisal. Well, I think that's true that there are not as good returns in the sector as we would like. I mean, if there were better returns, then there would be more capital flooding in, and that would be a good outcome for companies and the ability to provide these services. I mean, the reality is that this sector is still early days. It's immature, even though we've been at this as the Clean Cooking Alliance, for 10, 12 years now. It's very early days in terms of real technological innovation, right? It was very rudimentary kind of improved cook stoves for so long, and just in the last couple of years, there's the integration of mobile technology and pay-as-you-go, payment models and all of these sorts of things. And so it's early days, and I think it's unreasonable to expect very good returns in a space where you're contending with all of the challenges that come with investing in developing markets. You're providing a service to the base of the pyramid. You're providing a service that people are not used to paying for, and so there's lower willingness to pay among come out. As you said, we've been trying to raise Spark Plus for several years, and we're excited that we got it across the line earlier this year. I think that there's a huge opportunity with many business models to innovative renewable technologies, electric cooking, biogas, ethanol. We see pockets of really interesting investment opportunities across the space. Clearly, sort of carbon-based business models and LPG are the two kind of areas where, on the LPG side, there's more mature companies. There's a high level of need for investment across the supply chain. But we're really excited about many business models in the sector.
That's great. Obviously, we need many Spark Pluses, and we need the financial sector to kind of respond for clean cooking. We shouldn't require a completely separate institution to do this. That's the ideal goal. In order for that to happen, what needs to happen in your view?
So it's an interesting point, right? I think Spark Plus is essentially a fund that is taking DFI, a mix of DFI, foundation and family office, and pension fund money, and blending it under one capital fund, which are very difficult to raise, but can be very powerful in mobilizing private sector capital by loading some of the risk to public money that is willing to take on that risk in exchange for catalyzing private sector investment. What we have to do as a fund like ours is deliver a return to investors. I would submit that actually what is really needed is a lot more results-based finance, a lot more concessional equity, and Acumen was speaking earlier in a session with my co-investment director, Xavier Perluca, who told the story of Spark Plus, and Acumen has a very unique model of raising philanthropy that they then invest as equity. And that's really what's needed in this space in order to invest in early stage companies with a lot of risk and all the challenges that I mentioned. You really need to have a model where you're willing to lose 20% of your capital, rather than generating not only capital preservation, but a return on that capital.
Brilliant. So, I mean, it's an interesting idea. So even when we get to a higher point, we need a really good mix of capital, from grants to concessional capital to commercial capital, carbon finance, to really make this thing work, right?
Exactly.
To get to the billions. Manojit, I just wanted to kind of come to you, I mean, from a 50,000 feet bird's eye view. I mean, you're sort of the elephant in the African room, as it were, right? So, and you work with a lot of banks, guarantee funds, and in fact, it's very odd. You should maybe, how ubiquitous AFDB is, because AFDB is an investor in the African Guarantee Fund and also Spark Plus, which I didn't know before we started the panel. So from a bird's eye view perspective, this is not a traditional area that AFDB people would expect it to invest in, right? So what are you seeing? Why are you coming into this?
Sure. Thank you. So I think there has been a change in the focus on the space over the last decade. Starting with maybe the work that the Alliance began, and resulting maybe in the bank's focus on clean cooking about a little over 5 years ago. So this is where we set targets for the first time, because it was something that most people believe did not match very well with what our sort of core strength in infrastructure was, right? Leaving aside maybe LPG. So I think that's one change that's happened in terms of focus. There has also been maybe 2 or 3 other changes, which is there has been growth in electrification over the last decade, leaving aside COVID-related sort of problems now and maybe quality of access issues with connections. And that sort of throws up opportunities. Peter talked about electric, cooking, and I think there's been technological advances on that front as well, and that allows potentially integration into government programs, into electrification programs. And I think we are having those discussions. For instance, I think with the MEX team and with the Kenyan team, we've been sort of trying to discuss how we might be able to pull that together. I think there are opportunities here in Ghana as well, for instance. So that's another change. The other thing is also changing models. I think in the energy side, or specifically electricity, it was a very centralized model that everyone worked off, and that's sort of going to a decentralized model. And we're seeing people who went to the solar home systems space go into LPG, pay-as-you-go, solar-based. Again, the cost reduction in solar sort of also enabling things like sort of solar-based electric cooking. So these are other changes that we're seeing, and I think also we're seeing more interest from governments. I think it's still anecdotal evidence, but not statistically significant, but we are seeing more interest. I mean, I think we were pleasantly surprised earlier in the year that the Somali government came to us with a program with no outside, I think, intervention, saying, here's a electrification program, 85% for mini grids, 15% clean cooking, or somewhere in that region. So I think these are some of the changes that we're seeing, and that obviously sends a positive signal to the market and brings people in. And I think the fact that entities such as Spark Plus are being set up sort of provides a positive signal to the entire ecosystem, right?
No, that's very interesting. So, I mean, a lot of the larger infrastructural supports and so on, payment system, all of these things is really reducing the cost of doing business for other banks, financiers, investors into the market, creating more stable conditions. That's really important. From a guarantee angle, so just want to turn to that. People worry about risk, and your core business is risk transfer, right? They just worry about risk. They just don't understand, right? What sort of role do you think the African Guarantee Fund can play to create some comfort to investors, to make sure that they are able to invest not only in funds like Spark Plus, but other organizations directly?
Yeah. Thank you. So exactly as even Peter said and Monojit has said, that it's quite new, and there's a lot of perceived risk associated. So what we do with the African Guarantee Fund is that we provide partial credit guarantees to organizations that are funding and financing such projects, with clean cooking, with energy efficiency. So we actually work to share the risk, and that sort of increases the capacity for the institution to invest, to lend, and to take advantage of that. We also provide technical assistance for our partner organizations that fund such initiatives. So, because a lot of it is a perceived risk, so just to get them capacitated with the correct knowledge, the correct skills and expertise, so they're able to actually really do a proper risk assessment, rather than just based on, you know, speculation, the fact that there's not enough information in the market about the segment. So we primarily work with institutions such as everyone on this panel, to ensure that, you know, our network, our reach is wide enough, and the projects that need financing are brought up to get that financing, and vice versa.
No, wonderful. So I think there are key elements of building blocks that need to kind of come in from the financial sector, or the traditional sector. Now, one of the things that Marcel talked about, I think everyone talked about, big elephant in the room is carbon finance. That's been the bit that's grown over the last 4 years, I think 27-fold. I don't know where Ronan is. He did the research. And if that's really driving the market, and I believe in some places, I won't mention the names, some of the big companies have said if it wasn't for carbon, we probably wouldn't be in the market, right? So if that's the case, how do you see, for example, Spark Plus harvesting the opportunities that carbon provides as a way of really scaling up services?
It's a great question, Faisal. I mean, I think it's really exciting times, obviously, given the price in the market. You know, there's a lot of activity developing carbon projects. Clean cooking carbon is, or cook stove carbon as it's often called, is what they call charismatic carbon, right? It attracts premium pricing. It has co-benefits associated with it alongside the emissions reductions. And so there's a rush to fulfill the massive demand in the market that seems to be only growing for carbon credits generated from, you know, the solutions that we're all here trying to scale up. I think that, you know, the way Spark Plus looks at it is that it's another revenue stream. In some cases, the companies that we'll invest with, it's their only revenue stream. You know, in some cases, we'll value it as a form of collateral. You know, the fact if it's pre-sold and pricing is locked in, then it's, you know, we can value it higher to a larger degree than if it's exposed to pricing risk. So there are all different nuances to the way that I think the investment community and even us, you know, will view carbon and carbon-based projects. You know, obviously there are risks associated with building an industry based on this sort of revenue stream. I think that we need to be very cautious about quality, you know, and there will be at some point a consolidation and a rush towards quality of carbon credits. So that's you know, something we're very conscious of, and hopefully as a sector we ensure that the carbon credits that are being put into the market, you know, continue to promote clean cooking as a great source of offsets.
Perfect. Great. Thank you very much. I want to turn to the audience, and I just want to see a show of hands. This is completely different from the last Clean Cooking Forum. Just a show of hands, how many people talked about guarantees in the last Clean Cooking Forum? How many people talked about carbon finance as a driver? A few. Was there an independent or a separate investment fund fully dedicated to clean cooking? Oh, World Bank. Yeah, but it's, well, World Bank is ubiquitous, so that's fine. That's all right. Yeah, you do everything. So, no, but I think it signals something quite different. That the world is very, very different than it ever was before. There are real opportunities where we're bringing in investors, guarantees, sovereign debt providers who provide infrastructure and so on. You've got big companies coming into a country with their balance sheets. So the opportunities to leverage revenue to grow is probably never been any greater than now. So I think maybe in the next forum, we might be speaking of, who knows, I don't know what we would be, maybe an exit into a stock exchange of Spark Plus selling its assets. Opportunities for projects to be financed. Absolutely wonderful. Thank you very much, and I want you to put your hands together for yourself for being patient. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Faisal Hussain. Ladies and gentlemen, you may exit the stage right. Thank you so much. Another round of applause for our panelists. And we move into our very next panel discussion around the conversation of aligning agendas towards resilient cities, communities, and landscapes. Now, I'll introduce the panelists, and then, of course, I'll bring my extraordinary moderator onto the stage. Allow me to bring onto the stage the Mayor of Accra, the Honorable Elizabeth Saki, joining us on the stage. She's not here? Okay, no problem. All right, may we kindly have from the Office of Public Engagement and Environmental Education, U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, Office of the Administrator, Rosemary Eno Bakari. CEO and co-founder of Systema.bio, Alex. International Affairs CCA, Ghislaine Koners Belopolsky. Advisor ESMAP, Samir Shukla. And last but definitely not the least, I bring onto the stage a wonderful moderator, Shirley McAlpine, founder of Shirley McAlpine and Associates. Once again, the conversation is aligning agendas towards resilient cities, communities, and landscapes. Shirley, over to you.
Are we good? Are we good? Yes. So I've really been looking forward to this conversation. Thank you everyone for being willing to talk about this. So we're going to start, so this is like looking at the big picture, and Rosemary, I'd love to start with over there with you, right? So when the Clean Cooking Alliance was launched, the US government committed to implement a US agencies that are involved, and what's the impact that they're having in having the approach of having like these US agencies working together?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I want to just note the energy from this conference and how fantastic all of the programming has been. And you know, I'm new to this issue, but I have learned so much from each and every one of you all here. So I want to first start by saying that. In regards to the Environmental Protection Agency in the United States, you know, really, and President Biden, right, he has really leaned on the whole of government approach to addressing many issues. And I think the thing about it is bringing these various groups together to leverage their expertise, but also their resources is really vital for sectors like this. And so even thinking about this forum and the work that we're doing here, there are multiple U.S. agencies who are a part of this work, right? We have the United States Environmental Protection Agency, we have USAID, we have the Department of State, we have the National Institute of Health, all of those folks working together to be able to bring our expertise and contribute to this work so that we have greater impact, right? Because we're better when we combine our efforts to really do this work and to lean into some solutions around this work.
And why is clean cooking so integral to us taking this approach?
I mean, clean cooking, you see it, I've seen it on this trip, right? We went on a couple of field trips, and I was able to really see the impact of the work that folks in this room are doing. And so it's really integral into really finding some solutions and figuring out how we push forward. There's a lot of work that's been done, but we're not finished. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done, which was, you know, highlighted in the last panel, and I know other panels that you all have heard from. And so it's integral in being able to really move the ball forward here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Alex, can we turn to you? Alex, sorry. Alex, can we turn to you if that's okay? One of the things that's undeniable that's been talked about in the last couple of days is the connection between food and cooking, right? And it seems like an obvious connection, yet in the discussions around sustainable food systems, the food system reform, access to clean cooking is rarely seen as integral. Why is that? And what's the impact of that disconnect that's been taking place over the years? Let me switch it. If you grab Rosemary's,
try this
perfect.
Okay, that's a great question. I think, we've spent the last couple of years really in the clean cooking sector focused on specialization. So it's really been really impressive here on this, in this event, seeing all the other companies, all the other CEOs really adding expertise into clean cooking. And then I think you're right, the risk is, how do we not end up in silos and be able to integrate with all the other really important impacts that we can have? Food systems, one of them, and I think that obviously cooking and food, we can't achieve the health outcomes from clean cooking if people are eating horrible food that's not healthy or sustainable for their local environments. But at this event here, really specifically, we've seen not only food systems, but I was just in a panel where they were talking about conservation. We've just, we're about to release a series of really incredible reports on gender, health benefits, time savings, which leads to poverty reduction. So when you talk about the influence of clean cooking, really I think if we only sort of put us in one bracket of either health or cost savings or time savings, it's going to really limit what we're doing. At Sistema Bio, we take agricultural waste, turn it into a clean cooking gas, and then put out organic fertilizer. So our DNA already allowed us to think a lot about food systems, think a lot how we're dealing with farmers very specifically, but I think there's tons of other opportunities for healthy food, healthy cooking, and then the healthy environment, healthy societies to really sit together.
And what can, if you think about, I'm sorry, apologies.
So personal up here.
You want to really we can get a little group going on here. So as we work across the sectors, what are the things that the different sectors can be doing to have a more integrated approach?
Well,
if you've got any specific examples, that would be awesome.
Yeah, so we're working in India right now in one of the largest tiger reserves in the center of the country. We have about 25,000 digesters forming about a half moon around the southern edge, and that's just been this amazing process of watching conservation groups, forestry groups, gender and health experts working together. It's a carbon project, so we've seen that integration of carbon. We've improved dietary conditions, food conditions in these communities. We've turned whole villages into smokeless villages, and that reduces human-tiger conflicts and the harvesting of wood. And I was just hearing about the guerrilla efforts in the center of, in the DRC and Uganda and Rwanda. So I think just thinking food conservation, healthy environments, it's really exciting because all of those things create synergies where you bring the passion from all these other things. And a bunch of conservation experts and health experts are like, oh, clean cooking, that's amazing. I didn't realize how important that is. So we want to be a champion of being a Big Ten, and we've really specialized and gotten good at what we're doing. But I think it's time for us to also make sure that this event's been incredible because we have conservation, carbon, and other experts here. So I think we're on the right pathway to put clean cooking right at the center of these sorts of efforts, and I hope that continues.
So Jolene, do you want to pick up the connection between biodiversity, clean cooking, and nature, and expand on that? Can we build on that connection? And why is clean cooking fundamental from your perspective?
Thank you, Shirley. And I think the fact that we even have to ask that question is illustrative of how disconnected humanity really is from nature and our ability to respond to the systems that we live in. We live within these interconnected systems every day, but yet our responses to tackling the issues are to try to break them down into silos. And We're not having the progress that we need to have, and in many cases we're creating unintended consequences and issues of scarcity and sort of competition, when actually, if we can look at this at the landscape level, if we can look at the entire system and address all of the challenges that we're trying to address together, we will have those multiple benefits at the same time. I mean, for what we've demonstrated this week really is that clean cooking is one of the most immediate and cost-effective tools to address the triple planetary crisis of climate change, nature loss, and pollution. And repeatedly all week we've heard about the impacts and the benefits, but putting it in the context of what's really happening on the ground is important. I think you mentioned the DRC. It's home to 10% of the world's tropical forests. 10,000 species that deliver carbon absorption services, the equivalent to 10 years of global carbon emissions. Yet 90% of their population relies on charcoal for cooking. And last year alone, more than 1 million acres of forest were lost. At this rate, by 2030, 30% of DRC's forests will be lost. These forests that provide central, vital ecological services, not just for Central Africa, for the continent, but for the planet. And by the end of the century, if this rate continues, the entire forest will be gone. And so we're seeing now this reality flashing upon us, and $133 billion a year are being committed to nature-based solutions, with calls to triple that by 2030 and quadruple it by 2050, with any hope to meet our climate, biodiversity, and land degradation targets. And last year at COP, 130 countries committed to end deforestation and land degradation, billions of dollars committed to sustainable food systems and restoring habitats. Yet the connection isn't often made that we need to address the root causes of why those trees are being cut down in the first place, why those habitats are being degraded. And so clean cooking is where we have that immediate opportunity to combine all of these: health, nature, biodiversity, gender, sustainable livelihoods, and make an impact tomorrow that will have a ripple effect, so that we have a hope of actually recouping any value from those investments. There is no point in planting a tree, transforming an agricultural system, restoring a habitat, if the communities that live alongside those projects have no other choice but to go in and collect wood and charcoal to feed their families.
Right. I think we forget that, yes, right. I think we forget that real choice point where if that any of us would make, if the choice is to cut down a tree to feed our families or not, we would feed our families. Absolutely. Like, it's really immediate, so the choice that we all want. Yeah. Is like really, so that's so powerful. Thank you for that. So what would be like a 1 or 2 action? Where do we begin? Like, what would be a 1 or 2 action to start?
I mean, I think we're already beginning. We're already beginning, which is wonderful, and I think that's been so inspiring for us to come together and to share these stories and to make these connections and see. I mean, CCA's latest research on clean cooking as a nature-based solution highlighted the progress and the amazing companies out there. I mean, we have Sistema Bio, we have Sequest, Otago, Delagua, others, and organizations like WWF and Mercy Corps who are already leveraging clean cooking value chains to deliver inclusive and sustainable rural development and ensure the long-term success of nature-based solutions. But the call to action is for any investor, any corporate off-taker, anyone who's involved in nature-based solutions and nature-based investments to reach out and integrate clean cooking where there's a need. Not purely just to minimize the risk to that investment if you're just looking at it from a financial perspective, but actually if you really care about protecting those habitats, protecting that biodiversity, and improving the livelihoods of those who are living on the front lines of conservation. We know indigenous communities, we know that rural communities are the ones that have the knowledge and the ability to most protect the land under their care, but we need to provide them with choice and opportunities. So investors, reach out to clean cooking companies, make sure that you're actively engaging in this broader ecosystem, and as we continue to build the evidence base of how we can provide that real value, bring these two ecosystems together. Let's scale finance together.
Thank you. Well, let's move on to like government and finance. So governments and development finance institutions have an enormous challenge in terms of deciding what to prioritize, because there's lots of different issues, that are multiple of issues across the sustainable development landscape. So what is needed to increase their focus on clean cooking? So what do we need to do, Samir? And then I'm going to give that question to you.
That's a great question. Before I start, I just wanted to bring the compliments and best wishes of the entire World Bank infrastructure and energy management. Unfortunately, Gabriela Elizondo couldn't be here, but otherwise the gender balance would have been even more skewed against Axel. But I just wanted to emphasize the commitment of the entire World Bank, in fact the World Bank group. You ask a very good question, and I think it, we can sit here and talk for ages about it. My own sense is it has to start from creating political and general awareness of both the downsides of the current methods of cooking, but also the great benefits that cleaner cooking will bring. And Faisal and others have talked about the $2.4 trillion that is currently the impact of poor quality cooking. And so creating awareness, creating a new political economy around the benefits of clean cooking, shifting the social contract away from handouts and untargeted subsidies to supporting clean cooking. I think that's one big element that I think has to change. Country after country that we spoke to today and yesterday, they talk about the lack of political commitment. I think that's the first big thing. And then I think clean cooking has to become mainstream in government strategies, not just for energy, but for climate, environment, be it food security, health, certainly, gender empowerment. I think once clean cooking is ingrained in all of this, I think we'll see a change in the approach. And then, of course, once that's done, there is a lot more that one can do in terms of the business environment, in terms of the supply chains, the market developments, and so on. So all of that work would have to be done thereafter.
And how do you create the environment for private investment?
Again, we heard a lot about from other panelists earlier and so on. You need clear policy commitment. I think that goes without saying. That clean cooking is an important part of the energy transition of the country's climate efforts. And then we have to build an entire policy framework around creating incentives for private investment to take place, for financing to flow in. And I think governments, both their policy statements and their institutions can make a big difference there. Somebody else mentioned in the morning session on results-based financing that institutional capacity is lacking. There is financing available, but there just isn't. And so I think we have to devote a lot more attention to creating that capacity, to putting in place predictable policies that private sector can then rely on and invest for the long term. Let me stop there.
Okay, thank you. So if we're I've got a question for everyone, as to close. What gives you hope? What gives you hope with regards to the future?
Thank you. I'll use this microphone so I'm not yelling. But I think the momentum, again, from this conference and this forum has really been significant. You can see it, you can feel it. But I think also the thing that gives me hope is young people, right? I know you guys are gonna hear from young people later, but the innovation, the passion, the excitement to find solutions for this massive thing that we're trying to solve is so important. So I think that's what gives me hope.
Thank you, Rosemary. Alex, what gives you hope?
I mean, this room gives me a lot of hope. It's like a big family here. There's people that have been working on clean cooking for 20 years and people that are here investing big money that just heard about it. And so I think working together and the types of collaborations that we have, I'm also really hopeful that COVID didn't really slow us down. I think it actually gave us this kind of new global perspective, and both carbon, conservation, clean cooking, a bunch of other things actually gained a little bit of momentum. So I think as we start facing global crises on the one hand. I think the human capacity for response is being demonstrated in this room, and and I'm just really hopeful. The growth I've seen in the other companies that I just respect so much around here, that kind of growth is more like Silicon Valley trashy product kind of growth, but we're doing it helping people, so really excited by that.
That's good. Thanks, Alex. How about you, Julie? What gives you hope?
I think it's so inspiring to see so many new faces and people new to clean cooking that are experts in their own sectors. So I am hopeful that as our clean cooking sector is growing, and it's growing as we've heard, that we're also reaching out and connecting and planting seeds in all of these other adjacent sectors, whether it's food, nature, it's municipal development, everywhere, gender lens investing, all of these different areas that people are saying, oh, this is how clean cooking is connected to my work. And I'm going to go back to my day job and see how I can make a difference and connect these dots and coordinate and collaborate with others, rather than the clean cooking sector having to bear this weight on our own shoulders. If we can reach out and build those bridges and inspire and empower others, then we create this ripple effect, and we'll get there faster and at the pace that we need to.
Thank you. Samir, what gives you hope?
No, I agree with all the panel members. Just looking out here, the discussions that we've had, the innovation, the vibrance, the energy that we've seen, you cannot not have hope after this kind of conversation. But also, you see a lot more countries prioritizing clean cooking. I mean, to me, that is really, I mean, when I first started looking at cooking 10 years ago or 12 years ago, Yabe, I don't remember when it was, we couldn't have imagined this conversation. So I think really there is hope. A lot of the partnerships that you see flourishing, was it the Health and Energy Platform for Action, the fact that carbon finance is coming in. I mean, to me, that is, Faisal is a bit worried about it, but I think it's a cause for hope, but with care, I suppose. And of course, our own program, the one that Yabe and team have started, the Clean Cooking Fund within Smes, small plug, Yabe. It was imagined as a $500 million fund, which would leverage about $2 billion and so on. It's not got to that level, but we see a lot of traction. We see almost, 9 or 10 countries where we've got these programs going and so on. So I see certainly a lot of hope. And next time around, I think we'll have 200 examples. You'll run out of time.
Yeah. So thank you so much, everyone, for this panel. Thank you. All right. Okay, you're welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you feel the hope just as much as they do, please another round of applause for them. Thank you so much, Shirley, for steering this conversation. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have an exciting moment. It's been 48 hours plus. We've been having a lot of very important conversations. But part of this important conversation is to highlight the people whose efforts we truly are proud of. With that said, we have some awards happening tonight. Please welcome back to the stage Jimna Vanderland, CEO, CCA, to recognize the winners of the 2022 Clean Cooking Women Leaders Award. And of course, coming onto the stage, Rejoice Intirwa, Kalinda Magloire, and Patience Alifo. Please, let's hear it a little bit more loud for our ladies winning the Women Clean Cooking Women Leaders Awards. Dimpna?
Oh, okay. I always get a little bit more emotional about these things than finance, I guess. As our sector has progressed over the last 10 years, there has been increased recognition around the role women play in leadership positions within the clean cooking ecosystem. I see immense potential among women-owned and women-led businesses in the clean cooking sector, and CCA seeks to elevate their visibility by spotlighting the transformative impact they bring to our sector. To do so, the Woman Entrepreneur of the Year Award was launched by CCA in 2017 to recognize outstanding female business leaders who are advancing clean cooking solutions in emerging markets. However, We are seeing women driving change across the entire clean cooking ecosystem, not only in business. So, in recognition of this leadership, we have expanded and renamed it the Women Leaders Award and have selected winners across 3 categories: policy, advocacy and research, business leaders and entrepreneurship, and youth leadership. To select the 2022 Women Leaders of the Year, CCA released an open call and received more than 50 exceptional nominees from over 20 countries: Africa, Latin America, and Asia. Nominees have to work to advance clean cooking solutions, hold senior leadership roles, and have a strong track record of leadership within their community. It is now my distinct honor to announce the winners of the 2022 Leaders Award: Rejoice, Kalinda, and Patience. Should I just do the...
Congratulations.
Accelerating access to clean cooking is a critical tool for empowering women and advancing gender equality, and it is women like these who make this happen every day. As they demonstrate through their passion, vision, and tenacity, the clean cooking sector presents opportunities for women to make their mark in a growing market and drive real progress. I am personally tremendously inspired by their expertise, perseverance, and tenacity, and I'm excited to be celebrating them today. I encourage all of you to share these amazing leaders' accomplishments through your social media channels. Please join me once more in congratulating CCA's 2022 Women Leaders of the Year Award, Rejoice, Kalinda, and Patience.
Congratulations one more time, Rejoice Ntriwa, Kalinda Magloire, and Patience Alifo. And thank you very much, Dimfna, for offering me the award, but I think they deserved it better than me. Ladies and gentlemen, history is being made not just by virtue of these awards, but by virtue of the fact that the CCA will finish off this conversation with the most powerful voice in the room. Can you imagine who that belongs to? Any takers? Who has the most powerful voice in the room? The youth have the most... I'll give you 100 Ghana cedis, remind me before I leave. Ladies and gentlemen, the youth have the most powerful voice in the room. And for those of us who are 30 years and above, do not look at me with this, with the glim in your eyes. No, but be faithful, be hopeful that if you have more young people interested in this conversation, then the work you started 10, 20, 30 years ago will indeed continue. Let's hear what the youth have to say. Please allow me to bring onto the stage the CEO of Mawazo Institute, Fiona Moores, founder and CEO, Planet Green Africa, Mwayi Kampesi, Youth Specialist, Sustainable Energy for All, Akil Calendar, Senior Associate, Market Strengthening and Venture Catalyst, Gadoni Kimani, and Gadoni is with the CCA, and they will be beautifully moderated by, of course, none other than Shirley McAlpine, founder of Shirley McAlpine and Associates. The youth, Shirley, over to you.
I've been looking forward to this for 2 days. Seriously. I'm excited about speaking to you and hearing your voices. So I'm going to kick off with you, Fiona. So given that Africa has the youngest population in the world, with 70% under the age of 30, how do you think African countries can seize the opportunity of this large youth population for growth and prosperity? And what role has clean cooking sector to play in that? So let's start with, how can we seize the opportunity?
I think I want to start by saying that we need space. Can you hear? Can you hear? No?
No.
Is this
Better?
Yeah. Okay. The first thing I really want to encourage is that the youth need to be given space. And by space, I mean space in different places, different levels. We want to be included in all of the conversations. Even when you don't think we might know, we're there to learn. So give us the space. And also create a space that is really encouraging us to open up fully, to show up authentically with all of our ideas. We have a lot of energy, we have a lot of passion, and we have a lot of kind of skin in the game. It's our future. So please just give us the space to be fully authentic and yeah, bring our ideas.
Yes, I love it. And so when you, in terms of that, so how important is the conversation around diversity and gender in the youth movement?
It's so important. It is so important. I mean, we can even start by just looking at nature. If you look at nature, places that have high diversity are more stable. They're more withstanding to change. And so if we don't have sort of diversity in every sense of the word, you know, in terms of ethnicity, gender, we're looking at experience, expertise, different fields. And I mean, clean cooking, this forum is showing that, bringing all of these different experts together to at least look for solutions to such a big issue. So diversity is just imperative. It is so needed. And in order to do diversity well, we have to, again, to my first point, create an environment to really encourage all of us to bring our real perspective to the table. So not only just having representation. We don't only need representation, we need more than that. We need really a space where we can bring our full authentic selves. Otherwise, there's no point of diversity if I can't bring my true self to the table. Then it doesn't make sense. Then it's just tokenism. So diversity is super, super important.
Perfect, thank you. Moya, I'd like to turn to you because you're a female founder, you are a young founder, but you are doing amazing things in the clean cooking space. So I want to hear something about your story, about how you got into the clean cooking space as a female founder, and then I've got another question for you about that.
Where do I start from? It's been a journey. I'm an architect by profession. That is my background. So I found myself in the clean cooking space because I'm somebody that is very passionate about the environment and women economic empowerment. So I was working as an architect. It was all fancy. It was nice walking into a room and I call myself an architect. But there was something that was just off and it wasn't fulfilling for me. So I worked for 3 years, a little close to 3 years, and then I quit my job as an architect. People thought I was crazy. Everyone around me thought I was crazy. And they almost made me believe I was crazy. So I founded my first business, in-house interiors, for me to fulfill that passion. And in-house interiors went on to thrive. It was one of the businesses that was featured in Forbes 30 under 30. That was the biggest milestone for the business. And for me to be in the clean cooking space, it was because of my own personal experience. For me to go through the environmental and women economic empowerment passion, I found myself leaning into the clean cooking because for somebody like me who comes from a country like Malawi, where 98% of the population uses fuel from trees, it's almost not impossible for somebody to notice how much trees are being cut every day to serve this need. So I thought I should do something because I was passionate about the environment. So I did a lot of research. I went through studying a lot of books. I spent a lot of time on the internet asking around questions. But there was one thing that was like very triggering for me. Whilst I was doing the research, I found out that 1 in every death in Malawi is attributed by the fumes from the kitchen. That was the moment for me. I was like, no, there has to be something that needs to be done. So I asked around people that were experts in the field, and for 2 years, I had been studying extensively to find a solution. So we came up with a product that we branded Nyasa Moto to service the low-income households of Malawi. So Nyasa means Malawi, and Moto is fire, so it's Malawi Fire. So we knew that if we needed to find a solution that was a lasting solution, regardless of being a lot of years where there hasn't been like a proper solution, we knew that we needed to get the people that we serve to be a part of that solution. So we once the product was done, we got the women involved in the solution. They are the people that give us the raw materials because the product is made from recycling agricultural waste. And so it's distributed and sold with the women, again, within established kiosks around Malawi. So, yeah.
It's phenomenal. It's a phenomenal journey that you've been on. How do you encourage and empower more young women to get involved and engaged and set up their own organizations?
I think we can't be talking about a solution about clean cooking if we were not involving the people that it serves, especially women. So for me, I think we need to have an enabling environment for the women to make it more attractive, and should have a lot of incentive around it. I'll give you an example of myself. I'm an architect by profession. So for my mother to really comprehend that I'm moving from being an architect and going back to the kitchen, it was very hard for her to take that in.
Right.
So it has to be a sector that has to be exciting for young people. Like this, where we are now, this is exciting. If I'm going to go back home and talk about us being panelists, people would be excited about the sector. So I think it should be something that's exciting, and also create an environment where there is funding that is intentionally put in place for women that are in the sector. I think that is something that can help to promote young women to get into clean cooking.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, let's take up the theme of being a pioneer. So, Akil, you've really been at the forefront of going out and being a spokesperson really around engaging young people in energy and climate movement. So I want to come to you. To what degree is clean cooking on the youth agendas, and then what is needed in order to expand and bring more young people in?
Testing? Yeah. Thanks for the question, Shirley. I'd like to frame it in a broader context. So I would say that everyone in this room is aware of the role of energy in addressing the climate crisis, right? But we're always amongst peers, and sometimes it's very easy to forget that this is an echo chamber, and this is not reflective of what is happening in the wider world. A lot of people are not keyed into this issue, and it's the same in the youth space. So we know that energy accounts for around 70% of global greenhouse gas emissions, and even with this information being out there in the climate space, energy is not spoken about outside of decarbonization at a very high level. Energy access is hardly ever spoken about, and clean energy is, clean cooking is not spoken about at all. Right? So the reality is it's not on the agenda yet. We need to change that. And I think the first step is to really dig into raising the profile, raising awareness around clean cooking. So I'm working to do that with SE for All I'm currently working on designing a youth strategy which builds and incorporates clean cooking into all the youth activities that SE for All has planned, and makes sure that it's there. And then also working closely with the Clean Cooking Alliance and other youth partners in the space like Student Energy and the SG7 Youth Constituency to design a clean cooking strategy for youth that we can use to address clean cooking in a unified way and make sure that we are aligned in our messaging moving forward to raise the profile of this critical issue. And I think once we start to see that awareness being raised, that critical mass getting to that point, then the wider youth audience and population can get involved. And they can get involved through multiple different ways, be it campaigning to shine light on the need for an environment, an enabling environment through policy, and making sure that youth are involved in that policy making. They can pursue like educational opportunities that help prepare them to enter the sector. And they can get involved, you know, like youth are on the ground, they're in the communities. The places where the largest gaps in clean cooking access exist are also the places that have the highest youth populations. So they have the hands-on the ground knowledge that's needed to create solutions that are accepted and taken on in the long term, because they know what works socially, they know how the behavior works in these places. And so I think there's a really valuable resource, and youth need to use this to develop solutions on the ground.
And if you had a call to action for people in your audience here, what would it be?
I think that there's a gap where it comes to entrepreneurs, you know, so I had the privilege of speaking to a few young people here at this conference during the last 2 days who are working on developing solutions. They're at various stages of development, but solutions that, if they were taken up, could contribute to closing this gap that exists. Is 2.4 billion people without access to clean cooking technologies. And I asked them the same question: do you have business experience? And the answer was no, every time. You know, and this is symbolic of a larger issue. You know, we have a lot of, not just in clean cooking and energy access as well, a lot of youth who are coming up with innovative solutions that can be scaled, and the ideas aren't bad, but they're failing because they just don't have that business acumen, that experience, that support that's needed to take it from an idea to a fundable project or a fundable resource or item that can be taken to market. And so I would like to really encourage the actors in this room to get involved in that way, right? We know that startups can fail. That is something that happens a lot. But when we think about it, there's quite a few, it's not many, quite a few organizations and companies that are working in the clean cooking space. We've seen them advertising their products for the last couple days. And they're having quite a big impact, even though it's not many. So if we allow youth-led businesses to slip through the cracks, right, retail businesses that can be scaled up and have a much bigger impact to slip through the cracks because of not having that business development support, it's a massive loss for the clean cooking industry every time that happens. You know, so I'd like to encourage all of you to get involved, whether it's through providing support, through partnerships, through convening power, through funding, through facilitation. You know, give your resources to youth so that they don't make that mistakes and so the sector can grow. And I think that's how we can make a step forward and close that gap.
Brilliant. A very clear, very clear call to action there. So Tony, I'd love to talk to you, come to you. You're working at CCA doing phenomenal work. What support do you see that young innovators and entrepreneurs, right, in the clean cooking sector need from companies and organizations we can build on this conversation here?
Thanks, Shirley, and thanks, Akil. I think Akil teed up that conversation very well. As young businesses, you know, they end up struggling, and how other organizations can come through. In the mentorship aspect, I think an accelerator program would be an amazing start. It has mentorship, it has business training, it has all of that. Any organization can take this up. It can be an NGO, it can be a for-profit organization which can do this. And I just want to parenthesize with the government, because the government is the biggest player in this. We have the government that makes laws, creates space for any dispute resolution in case that comes up. So how the government can help small businesses in the clean cooking sector through policy, tax breaks would be a great thing. I mean, it's a social impact organization, helping the society. It would be great if you're not paying 30, 40% tax. Let's have a 10-year gap or a 10-year break, then have you pay 5%, 10%. Basically, in reference to this, we're talking about the cocoa project in Rwanda. Just when you think of tax breaks, think of that. Another way the government can come in, I am in conversations with a few entrepreneurs, and we understand that when it comes to dispute resolution, they're not really favored. And if we had a situation or an environment where companies would be able to handle these problems properly, quickly, more efficiently, and just save on legal costs, I think that would be a great thing.
So what would be another, what's your call to action? If you had a call to action and some advice for young people to step it up, to start engaging, what would it be?
Here's the thing about ideas and about companies. Whether you believe in creation or Big Bang Theory, there's never been a second one. Yet we're seeing all these beautiful things happen. That means we are the ones who are birthing this. Every beautiful architectural project you've seen, every vehicle, like the tiniest thing, these are human minds, which means whichever idea you have, you can make it happen. I mean, like, it's all this, and we saw it at the Innovation Expo. You know, I was talking to entrepreneurs and I'm like, how did you think of this? And this is a human mind that's coming up with this. So if they can do it, and we are here and understand what they're doing, it means we have that capacity, right? So one day you wake up or in the middle of the night, you have a brilliant idea. My challenge is take it up, run with it. We have your back.
Beautiful. How about everyone's gonna, like, a question for everyone to that same question. What would be your call to action to a young person who's sitting in the room or who's listening to get involved? What's your call to action?
So, oftentimes I'm approached by young people who come and ask me, it's usually one of two questions. It's either, how can I make an impact in the sector? Or how can I get involved in the sector? And I think that clean cooking represents an amazing way to do both of those things. I don't think there's an aspect of the energy sector that gives as much room for positive impact as clean cooking. And working in this sector, you're ticking so many boxes in terms of addressing climate, addressing environment, addressing gender rights, making the lives of women and children better. And it's so many different things that you contribute to in a positive way. So it's really rewarding in that sense. And then it's also a nascent industry. Right? It's growing. There's going to be a lot of opportunity, a lot of jobs. It's an excellent place for young people to get involved at an early level and actually beat the industry to the chase. You know, prepare now, and so we can contribute in a meaningful way as it grows, and position yourselves to help close these gaps, because we have some big numbers to get down.
Right.
So yeah, I think we can have a really positive impact in that space.
Excellent. Thanks, Akil. Why? Same question.
Well, I would like to believe that clean cooking is a cross-cutting solution for a lot of problems that we're facing, especially in African countries. So if there is anybody that is wanting to start and get involved in the sector, I believe it's the best to just start from where you are at the moment, because there isn't really a lot of proven technologies and theories behind a lot of clean cooking solutions, but there really is something that everybody can get involved in doing, like he's put it. There's a lot of ideas that somebody can study through and then develop them from where they are. So if you have to start, then just start from where you are. There isn't like the right moment to start it. There isn't like the wrong moment to start it, but it is a call for action for this moment, because clean cooking is really an action that needs to be taken now than later. It's an emergency and it needs to be done now.
Yes. So start where you are and take action now. So Fiona, you're going to bring up the rear. What's your call to action to anyone, young person who's listening right now?
My call to action is to think a bit differently about your ideas and how you want to implement your ideas. Think a little bit out of the box, and don't be afraid to think out the box. Your idea might sound crazy, particularly like, you know, Mwai, you told the story about how you switch careers. A lot of times we're pushed into kind of a linear kind of way of thinking, like I go down this track and I have to stay down this track, I can't get off it. Don't be afraid, be bold, just think outside the box with your solutions, and think differently, even in terms of how you lead in your teams, in terms of creating new solutions to problems. So change things, do it differently. You don't have to match to what you've seen. We don't have to fit in the mold anymore, because sometimes the mold doesn't work, and things are changing, and we have to do things differently. So in every sense of the word, just don't be afraid to think out the box, and you'll have the support. There's plenty of people who are looking to have somebody else who's also being bold to kind of join forces with, and you'll be surprised. There's so many people out there that will support you. So don't be afraid to be bold. That's my call to action.
Hold on. Still got time, so I'm gonna go Akil.
Sorry. On my previous point, on getting business development support, SE for All is planning to work a lot in this entrepreneurial space in the coming year, and we will welcome any support that companies, organizations in this room, governments are willing to get on board and partner. Just wanted to put that out there.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, thank you to this youth panel. Thank you for closing the panels for this wonderful couple of days, and for everything that the energy that you're bringing has just been incredible. So thanks a lot.
I think we are in great hands. Would you agree? Oh, yes, we are. Thank you very much for that wonderful conversation. And thank you, Shirley, for steering it. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we're coming down to the wrap-up. I'm going to ask Dimfna to take the stage one more time.
All right, such an inspiring discussion to bring to a close this year's Clean Cooking Forum. As I've listened to all of you in breakout sessions, partner interactions, and expos visits during the forum, it's become clear to me that the sector has indeed made much impressive progress in the last years. The passion, commitment, and innovation that each of you and your organizations are bringing to the clean cooking sector is proof of the positive momentum we have unfolding before us, and I'm truly inspired by it. Clean cooking is an immediate, impactful solution to climate, energy access, environment, health, and gender equality, and can no longer be addressed in silos. We have to change the narrative and think holistically about the household energy needs and integrated energy planning while leaving no one behind. So much has happened this week, with more than 700 people in attendance making their unique contributions to the sector. I know there are too many moments and announcements for me to highlight today, but they are all part of the momentum we've built together this week. Let's continue this energy, continue to push to collaborate. Systemic approaches are dearly needed that mobilize commitment and finance and accelerate progress at the pace and scale the challenge requires. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dimfna. And now, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to give the last word to the Deputy Minister of Energy, the Honorable Mohammed Amin Adam.
Let me stand on existing protocols, and I bring you felicitations from Madame Frima Osei Opari, the Chief of Staff in the Office of the President, who has asked me to close this forum on her behalf. I would like to express the appreciation of the government of Ghana to the Clean Cooking Alliance for organizing this insightful forum, which has given us all the opportunity to share experiences on clean cooking. To the speakers and panelists, I am grateful that you have given us valuable contributions on the journey to universal access to clean cooking. As variously expressed over the last 2 days, clean cooking is everybody's business, and we must all rise to the occasion. Ladies and gentlemen, it is our collective responsibility to curb the excessive exploitation of woody biomass for cooking and heating, which is destroying our forest at an alarming rate, negatively impacting our environment and polluting the air. These affect the health of everybody, especially women and children. A lot of ideas have been shared during this forum, and it's my plea that participants make use of the ideas and lessons learned to push for the attainment of a universal clean cooking access. We must all join the advocacy to change global policy towards universal clean cooking. The time for acceleration of clean cooking efforts is now than ever before. And we can do this by adopting models that have worked in our respective countries. In Ghana, we take lessons from our rural electrification model, which has taken access of electricity to 87% and is expected to reach universal access by 2024. These remarkable results will show that there are successful models that can drive the clean cooking agenda. I must also state that whilst clean cooking is a developmental imperative, the commercial basis for it will provide impetus to scale up. We therefore need to create a market opportunity, provide incentives and regulations for clean cooking in order for the private sector to effectively participate in this industry. Sustainability, inclusion, and integration are key to the growth of the clean cooking industry. I call on everyone to see Africa, therefore, no longer as an experimental ground for pilot projects, but as a market ready for scale-ups and big investments. This is what will increase access to clean cooking technologies. And the young man just about a few minutes ago was right when he said that access does not feature prominently in our discussions on the energy sector. And so when I hear that 600 million people in sub-Saharan Africa do not have electricity, and about 920 million people do not have access to clean cooking, I worry so much, because Africa's population, 1.3 billion, is expected to double by 2050. About 500 million more people by 2030. If we can't give access to 920 million with 1.3 billion population, how can we provide access to our people when the population doubles? This requires us to invest heavily in access to energy and access to clean cooking technologies. And the young lady told us we must do this with urgency. We must do it now. Ladies and gentlemen, the clean cooking agenda is central in our national energy transition objectives. Our quest for just and equitable energy transition is rooted in the fact that several millions all over Africa have problems of access. And many of those who have access are using old and inefficient technologies. It is for this reason Ghana will continue to be a leading voice in promoting clean cooking technologies, particularly natural gas as transition fuel in this transition we are all going through around the world. Because this has great promise for democratizing access to clean cooking, either through LPG or gas-based electric cooking technologies. But in doing this, ladies and gentlemen, we have to build the infrastructure. We must have competitive pricing, and we must create the enabling environment to attract investment. As we go to COP27, let us use the lessons from this forum to express our voice and to express this voice forcefully. and to let the world know that we are not leaving any community behind in our journey towards universal cooking, clean cooking. I have no doubt that this forum has been very effective in meeting its purpose, which is to convene global leaders to pave the way for much needed action, to mobilize the necessary funding and partnerships, and to create the policies towards achieving clean cooking and accelerate progress towards global climate and development goals. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank the exhibitors for the various technologies they exhibited over the last 2 days. Africa, as you may know now, is no longer an ascriptive society as it used to be. We are open to new technologies, and we are open to new technologies now. We are open to new technologies for clean cooking. We are open to new technologies for heating, and of course, for electrification. Because we do not want to be reduced to a market of last resort, leaving us with old technologies that are both inefficient and costly, and that will exacerbate conditions that are already bad in Africa. And so, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for your participation. Particularly, let me thank the Clean Cooking Alliance and its partners. And the Chief of Staff has asked me to tell you that you should come back to Ghana many more times, because Ghana is open to holding this forum as many times as we can. We are in the middle, we are in the center of our offshore neighbors and also our onshore landlocked neighbors. And so we are not just one country, but a gateway to West Africa. And you should take advantage of this. Let me thank all our speakers, panelists, and of course, all of you distinguished ladies and gentlemen for coming to this forum and for participating and showcasing the potential of this industry. I thank you most sincerely. May God bless all of us, and may God bless Ghana. Thank you once again.
Honorable Mohammed Amin Adam, Deputy Minister of Energy, thank you very much for that. Ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for the after party. Are you ready? No, I don't think you're ready. I think we need another panel. I wouldn't do that to you. I know it's been a long day, fruitful, extremely productive, so we'll serve you a little bit of great music, of course, by the Clean Cooking Ambassador himself, Rocky Dawoodi. It's happening upstairs in the garden area. But before then, please allow me the opportunity to thank a few organizations, a few people on behalf of Clean Cooking. We say a big thank you to the staff of Kempinski. Thank you very much. We also say a big thank you to our event planners, Collage and Jam Jar. Thank you so much for doing this for us. The staff, where are you? Clean Cooking Alliance staff, where are you? Let's see you. Are you still alive? Please stand up. Let's see you. Clean Cooking Alliance staff, where are you? Please stand up. Where's Kip? Wow. Now, no, don't sit, stand, don't sit down. This is months. Is it years or months? Months of preparation. It's very easy for all the delegates to arrive to everything, to the lights, to the stage, to the videos, to the panel discussions, to the microphones going off and on, which was caused by the weather, by the way, to the coffee breaks, to the lunch. But all of this really and truly is done as flawlessly as it was because of the dedication of the CCA team under the leadership of Dimfna. And it wouldn't happen if they didn't believe that you were worth every single ounce of their effort. So to the CCA team, we thank you for making this happen. We really do thank you. And also a very big thank you to the government of Ghana for providing such a wonderful environment. I'm informed that Mr. President himself has endorsed this 100%. He asked the gods to give us good weather yesterday. I don't know what happened today, but that's fine. We needed a bit of cool weather anyway. So ladies and gentlemen, it's been a long day. Tomorrow, I do believe that there are a few conversations happening as well. There's the information on your app. Don't forget to download it, or don't forget to also check on Twitter, LinkedIn, anywhere that you may require any information. But for now, my name is Anita Erskine. I wore my dancing shoes because Rocky has promised an all-nighter, and I do believe that many of us are going upstairs. But for those of you who are catching your flights tonight, have a safe trip home, and remember, whatever you do, wherever you go, don't forget to cook only Ghana jollof with your clean cooking stove. Good night.